good afternoon, and good evening to all of you and to Mr. Wibawa. Today, my name is Rexford Nugroho, and I will tell you about what I learned from international security for the past last few months. Now, the very first topic I want to talk about is the national security. National security at best can be described and defined to be ambiguous, yet one common idea that can be agreed upon is the idea that every nation and state would feel a concern for their own safety that evolves surrounding about its military and foreign threats to other non-military threats such as economic and ecological factors as more theories within the foundation is being polished. As the year goes on, the discussion about national security is becoming more and more complex and wider as the factors to what affect national security. So far, national security is divided by dimension into seven aspects or sectors, which includes physical security, infrastructure security, computer security, political security, economic security, ecological security, and security of energy and natural resources. These dimensions also describe the current threat to national security, which as nations such actions of other nation states, action by violent non-state actors, by narcotic cartels, and by multinational corporations, and also by the effects of natural disasters, etc., etc. Physical security explains how the government will be able to deter and protect its borders against physical threats such as military threats and terrorism. Infrastructure security is the security provided by protecting infrastructure such as major buildings include hospitals, banks, bridges, airports, etc. Computer security to cybersecurity or identity security explain to the security of computer devices such as computers and smartphones, as well as the computer networks such as private and public networks, and the internet. Political security explaining about political stability to national order. Economic security refers about the ability of a nation state to maintain and develop the national economy. Meanwhile, the ecological security refers to integrity of ecosystem and biosphere, but particularly in relation to the capacity to sustain a diversity of life forms. Lastly, the energy and natural resources are linked to availability of adequate natural resources. It is important for a nation to develop its industry and economic power. The significance of national security is threatened by the existence of consistency of approach. International security advertising the meaning of interdependence to achieve security alongside the impact of human rights and civil liberties. Moving on to the second topic, which is about talking about grand strategy. In order to actually plan things well to build a great future for the nation, one must build what is being known as grand strategy. The term grand strategy at first created by many great strategies in the past. One of the most prominent ones include Karl von Clausewitz. War, according to him, should not be compared to art, but to commerce, which is also a conflict of human interests and activities. Clausewitz, a Prussian general who fought against Napoleon, quite literally wrote the book called On War, published in 1832, a year after his death. On War is regarded by military experts even today as definitive study of warfare. His ideas remain widely taught in military schools and are more than ever essential to the modern strategies. Clausewitz gives us grand strategy, teaching with his own answer. Strategy is the necessary response to the inescapable reality of limited resources. No entity, regardless of size, has unlimited resources. Strategy, therefore, is about making choices on how we will conserve our limited resources to achieve competitive advantage. Therefore, war is limited according to Clausewitz. With one nation is about to achieve something, it must have a clear goal and mindset in order to minimize any more losses while achieving more through its focus on certain goals. That is what called the grand strategy. We talk about is going to be about human security. When talking about human security, we must know the definition of it itself. Human security is a paradigm for understanding global fragility, and its proponents challenge traditional notion of national security to military security, suggesting that the appropriate reference point for security is at national level. He argues that it should be at a human level. Without human security reveals a human-centered, interdisciplinary understanding of security that encompasses a variety of research areas, including development studies, international relations, strategic studies, and human rights. There are about seven types of security that are included within the concept themselves. The first is the economic security, which requires a guaranteed basic income for individuals, usually from productive and paid work, or as a last resort for publicly funded safety net declare. In this sense, only about a quarter of world population currently enjoys economic security. While economic security may be more serious in developing countries, concern also arises in developed countries. Unemployment is a major contributor to the political tension and ethnic violence. Food security requires that all people have all physical and economic access to basic food. According to the United Nations, food availability is generally not an issue, but the problem is often poor food distribution and lack of purchasing power. Previously, the issue of food security was addressed at a national level and global level. However, their impact is limited. According to the UN, the key to address issues related to access, job, and income security. The third one is about health security to ensure minimal protection against disease and unhealthy lifestyle. developing countries, the main causes of death have traditionally been infectious and parasitic disease, while in these industrialized countries, of the main cause of death are diseases of circulatory system. In developing countries, lack of access to drinking water sources is one of the biggest environmental threats. In industrialized countries, one of the main threats is the air pollution. Global warming due to greenhouse emissions is another environmental safety issue. Personal security, being the fifth type of security, is intended to protect people from physical violence, whether from governments or outside state. Violent individuals or substate actors. Violence families or predatory adults. For many people, the biggest source of anxiety is crime, especially violent crime. Now, moving on to the next topic, we should talk about the homeland security. Security is basically a U.S. national security term explained to be the national effort to ensure a safe, secure, and resilient homeland against terrorism and other dangers, where American interests, aspirations, and ways of life can flourish. One thing that must be noted is the fact that homeland security is not limited to terrorism. Terrorism is an act of violence and crime committed by individuals and or groups for ideological purposes arising from influence as political, religious, social, racial, or environmental nature. In the context based on the United States, an all-risk approach exists when it comes to homeland security efforts. This field is often studied alongside emergency management due to their similar nature and goals. Given the relatively abrupt growth of the field, the quality of programs varies widely between programs as does their respective accreditation status. As part of effort to combat these variations, the International Association of Emergency Managers offers a scholarship program which, with the aim of nurturing, promoting, and developing disaster preparedness and resilience. Disaster by continuing to educate students to study the areas of emergency management, disaster management, and related programs. The scope of homeland security includes things such as emergency preparedness and response, such as including volunteer paramedics, police, emergency managers, and firefighters, domestic intentional intelligence operations, today largely within the FBI, critical infrastructure, including physical and perimeter and network protection, investigate those who produce and distribute child pornography, border control, including land, sea, and national borders, facilitate legal and trade tourism, while ensuring legal immigration, transport security, and logistics, detection of radioactive materials, laundering, and investigate national criminal organizations related to human trafficking, drug trafficking, smuggling, money laundering, and extortion. Law enforcement, on the other hand, is just a representation of realization of the homeland security itself. The concept of law enforcement dates back to ancient times, and forms of law enforcement and police have existed in various forms across many human societies. Modern legal states codes use the term peace officer or law enforcement officer to include every person vested by the legislative state with police power or authority. Topic is about national defense and its contemporary changes and contemporary national security. Many changes in the national community which affect the content of traditional national security concepts have occurred in recent years. A new condensed delineation of contemporary security is presented by the author. It suggests that a cooperative model of national security may represent the starting point for the forming of a new and more efficiently adjusted national and global security structure in our modern world. Including national defense, as it had turned from its traditional forms with many dimensions of its own. When it comes to talking about national defense, there must be some kind of strategy to build a national potential to be good enough to withstand obstacles. For this, the use of grand strategy is still there, but becoming a small part of the planning in order to actually achieving its national goals. For this, a greater approach based on ontology would be ontological foundation of the national defense. The main foundation of ontology, if we take a look into the Indonesian context, would be the Pancasila itself as a sole foundation of motivation behind the ontology of national defense here in Indonesia. From here, its foundation will be the basis of how leader system and national strategy to be formed through it, with the help of divergence and convergence from a prominent individual who has shall serve the nation with a purpose that come back again into the sole foundation of Pancasila. From each individual inside the government who will need to formulate a plan to counter the greatest threats, and ensuring measures would be, if the taken such threats are becoming a reality, that would threaten the national sovereignty and the future. The formulation of execution of the national strategy is a must for any nation's future and preparation on facing such unstable times and period. With the formulation of its national strategy would usually include the measurement of national potentials and its instruments. Forming strategy numbers and its usage that will lead to end goals for being winning nations. And in order to understand it even further, we can take a look upon the strategy transformative framework of Indonesian national defense. Just as previously mentioned, the strategic and transformative framework will include the potential strength of the nation, real power of the nation, and national power instruments. Potential strength of the nation will include the people by its territory, whether for lands, oceans, sky, and space, and lastly about national resources. Then regarding about the real power of the nation, it will be include sectors such as ideology, politics, economy, social and technology, and psychology, and cyber. Lastly, about national power instruments, we include military intelligence, diplomacy, law enforcement, information, financial, and economy. The dimension of warfare for the nation of Indonesia will be divided into two main types. The military one will divide, which divided into conventional and unconventional ones, while the neo military will include the characteristic of regular warfare by dimensions of these two. It will further break down into five dimensions, such as politics, economy, technology, psychology, and cybernetics. We're going to talk about the sixth topic, which is about the cybersecurity program. Since the internet entries and with events have changed that started in later a long time, the idea of cybersecurity has gotten to a recognizable subject in both our profession and individual lives. Cybersecurity and cyber dangers had been reliably displayed for the final 50, a long time of mechanical alter. Within the 90s, 1970s, and 1980s, computer security was primarily constrained to the scholarly community under the conception of web where with the expanded networks, computer infections and network interruptions started to require of. After the spread of infection within the of the 90s and 2000s stemmed the institutionalization of cyber dangers and infections within cybersecurity. Cybersecurity it become a prominent one within our modern times. Cybersecurity is the assurance of computer frameworks and systems from assault by pernicious on-screen characters that will result in unauthorized and divulgence, burglary or harm to equipment, computer program or information, as well as from the disturbance of or confusion of the administration they give. Genuine monetary harm has been caused by security breaches, but since there are no standard for assessing the fetch of an occurrence, their, their assets were information accessible is that which is made open by organization included. As will physical security, the motivations for breaches of computer security vary between attackers. Some are thrill seekers or vandals, some are activists, others are criminals looking for financial gain. A standard portion of risk modeling for any specific framework is to recognize what might persuade an assault of that framework, and who may and well be persuaded to breach it. The level of detail of safeguards would change depending on this framework to be secured. A domestic individual computer bank and classified military range confronts essentially diverse dangers. Indeed, when the basic innovation and utilized are comparable. Nowadays, computer security comprises basically of preventive measures, like firewalls of an X method. A firewall can be characterized as a way of shifting organized information between a half and organized and another organized. Firewalls are common among machines that are forever associated to the internet. Some organizations are turning to big data platforms such as Apache Hadoop to extend data accessibility and machine learning to detect advanced persistent threats. Last but not least, we're going to talk about terrorism. One of the most famous national threats when it comes to physical form of it is known to be called as terrorism. Terrorism in its general sense is the use of illegal violence to induce terror or fear, often with the aim of achieving political and religious goals. The term is used in this field primarily to refer to international violence in peacetime or in context of war against non-combatants. Although there are different definitions of terrorism, there are no universal agreement on this. Terror is a loaded term. It is often used to mean that something is morally wrong. Governments and non-state groups use the term to denounce opposition groups who are usually using physical violence and psychological terror. The term terror itself was originally used to describe the action of Jacobin club during the reign of terror of the French Revolution historically. There are many forms of terrorism and its methods. Yet in order to fully identify them, one must know their goals in order to actually plan seeing their goals and methods to determine the types of terrorism. Motivation and causes that form the area of terrorism are varied, but general ones include specific political and social causes that have include independence or separatist movement. Irritated this movement, adoption of particular political philosophy that demanded such things, environmental protection, supremacism of a particular group, preventing a rival group from sharing or occupying a particular territory, subjugation of a particular population, spread of dominance of particular religion, any perceived government oppression in responding to violent act. Personal social factors are varied too, but it can be dumbed down into different reasons such as identity, including affiliations with particular culture, ethnicity, or religion, previous exposure to violence, financial reward, mental health disorder, social isolation, and perception that the cause of response, profound justice, or a dignity. That is all that I can give to you all about what I learned for these past few months about international security. My name is Rexford Nugroho. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time.